Over the years, the relationship between comic book publishers and comic book readers has changed. And in the past, the relationship between comic book publishers and comic book readers was interdependent. And that meant there was an even exchange of product for dollars. So, in order for a comic publisher to get the customer's dollars, they had to provide a quality product in exchange for it. However, in the last 25 or so years, the interdependent relationship between comic book publishers and comic book readers has morphed into a codependent relationship. And in this relationship, comic book publishers use the catalog of characters as leverage against the readers and pull all sorts of stunts in hopes of getting them to continue to buy comics. And in this relationship, everything usually winds up dysfunctional because instead of the customer feeling like they have a sense of power, the publisher feels like they have a sense of power. And this is why they always do these things like these events and these gimmicks and these deaths because they feel they have a captive audience and they feel that they can pretty much dictate the terms to the customer. And because they feel they can dictate the terms to the customer, they pretty much express contempt to people in passive aggressive ways. Like, for example, at your DC Comics, the way that they express their contempt at the customer is with these storylines that are filled with gimmicks and things like rebooting their universes constantly and all of these deaths and all this gore. Now, they'll say on the surface that they're doing this because the sales are bad, but in reality, they know they have a captive audience. They know that codependent people will continue to buy comics because they believe that they are going to get something out of it. And the whole thing with a codependent relationship is that because that one person has power over the other, they're going to continue to think that if they continue to buy the comics, things will change. Unfortunately, when a person has leverage, they have no interest in changing anything because they know they have a person captive. They know they have some control over them, and they know that as long as they pull these stunts and try to get attention from this person, they're going to get a response out of them. And this is what the relationship between comic publishers at the big two, like DC and Marvel, have devolved into. It's no longer interdependent like it was when I was growing up and when my brother was growing up. Back then, if you had a bad comic, people just didn't buy it, and the publisher was pretty much, they got the message and they either changed the creative team or they canceled the book. Or if they went on for a radical change, like with in the 1960s with the Diana Prince Wonder Woman, they pretty much changed it back because they understood that in a business world where interdependence is how things run, you pretty much, if you don't make a product that sells, you're pretty much going to lose to competitors. But in the comic book world, with the continuing declines in the industry, we've seen that interdependent relationship change because there's a small audience that continues to buy comics. So now people are more codependent because the places and venues that people used to get comics from, like your grocery stores, like your drugstores, like your Walmarts, those venues are no longer there. So there's only one place to get comics, and there's only two big publishers, and because the market has gotten contracted so badly, the publishers feel like they have some sort of leverage on the few readers, and the few readers, for the most part, these days aren't really pushing back. We do see a little resistance from at the DC side with this new 52. We started to see a little resistance, but you haven't seen the hard resistance that you would see in the case of something like a New Coke. When they came out with New Coke and the audience didn't like it, they pretty much rebelled against that brand. And Coke started to see itself losing enough market share that they were forced to change it back within a year. And the same thing when Coca-Cola tried to launch something called Smooth Serve in places here like in New York. Now, back then, around 2004, 2005, your Coca-Cola decided they were going to do this Smooth Serve where they were going to take a half liter out of a bottle of soda and try to sell customers a 1.5 liter bottle of soda instead of a 2 liter soda at the same price. And many people saw the smooth nonsense through the smooth surf gimmick, and they refused to buy those 1.5 liter bottles. And they started buying competitors' 2 liter bottles. And by about 2006, the 2 liter bottles were back on the shelf. And that's the type of pushback that consumers usually flex when companies try to um, change products on them in an interdependent business marketplace. But in a codependent marketplace like your comic book industry these days, the big two are pretty much not getting the resistance that would force them to really make the changes that are necessary to stay competitive. Instead, they use their leverage to bully the customer into buying product. And I look at that DC Comics Rebirth relaunch, and it shows me the codependent relationship that many comic readers who are still reading the brands of the big two still have. They're willing to accept whatever poor quality product from these publishers like DC and Marvel, and never making a demand or even understanding that they have a right. This is your dollar, it has value, and if somebody is not giving you a product that is high quality and high value, you should take your money elsewhere, because that's what any other consumer out here would do. They would take their money to a competitor because this company is not producing products that they like. So they're going to go try this competitor's product. And many comic fans, that's what they've done over the last 5 years, especially with the DC and Marvel. They've gone out and started trying the indies and trying self-publishers like myself. They've been trying our products instead of trying the other products, because they're saying, look, this product is of poor quality. It is not consistent. I want to go try something else. If I want to, get some fantasy, I can get fantasy from other areas. And some have walked all the way back to the young adult bookshelf, and started reading those type of series because they understand the value of their dollar and they understand the worth. But a lot of people still have a relationship with the characters at your DC or your Marvel, and because they are emotionally attached to these characters, that's why they continue to buy the product, and that's why the publisher continues to maintain leverage over them, and that's why they can continue to string them along with these gimmicks, with these stunts, and make them believe that, this is going to change, when in actuality they have no interest in changing anything. What they really are showing is their contempt for the customer and how little they value their dollars and how little they value them. Because in an interdependent business place, the customer's dollar is valued, the customer is valued, and the customer is treated with respect. But in the comic book world, I noticed that the customer, they're not treated with the same respect that a customer would get when they would walk into a store like a Macy's or Brooks Brothers or any sort of high-end retailer, where they would be treated where their dollars would have a value, their dollars would have a worth, and when they would go in, they would understand that, they have to give you something in exchange for those dollars of value. And I look at the comic book world, and this is one of the reasons why the marketplace is struggling, because no one really wants to give the customer what they deserve in exchange for their dollars. And that is a top quality comic book with an easy to read story with a beginning, a middle, and an end that features their favorite characters. That's what they've been asking for, and that's what a publisher who believes in interdependence would try to offer them. But in a codependent relationship, what they're going to do is try to string you along, make promises to you, and then never deliver the goods. And then as you continue to spend money in the hopes of getting that product, all you're getting is more promises, more hope, but nothing really changes. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe.